the bounty hunters. Captain Schmidt had requested time to clean himself off and get into something more suitable for meetings before any serious conversation happened, which Herika agreed to. The rumored pheromones of humans were certainly neither exaggeration nor joke, so giving him time to rinse of the literal smell of sex from his person and change into something that didn't have a dusting of it was a good first step to everything that was happening. In the meantime, it gave her a little time to examine the waiting room she was in. The chainbreaker was a clean, well-lit, and fastidiously organized ship, but it was also lived in. The room she was in now was comfortable, with a small array of different furniture to relax on, numerous little end tables and a trophy case on the far wall. It was mostly filled with little receipts to show successful captures and the occasional trinket or keepsake from a mission. A fair chunk of the smaller furniture in the room was carved from bone or had the treated leather of some exotic beast to it. A room with history, not quite a museum or dedicated trophy room, but proof these men wore their accomplishments with pride. The door behind her opens and she turns to regard the tiny figure of a Cobe woman walking in, followed by an automatic stroller. "You're the caseworker? Miss Spindle, yes?" she asks. "That I am. You would be the first mother, Dr. Cindy Schmidt." "Yes, but I was a specialist nurse when I first started caring for Slytherin," Cindy admits. "Your record is also rather odd. No last name. I was pulled into debt slavery. Deep. I legally divested myself of my family name in order to make sure that whatever further debts there were began and ended with me," Cindy says as she finds her way to a comfortable chair near Herika, who takes a moment to examine the unusual babe resting in the stroller. "I've never seen this species before." "Have you heard of the first contact the Empire is making here on Mordonon?" "Yes, but details are few and far between." "Meet one of them. The Orhanas. They're very sensitive to light, and as a species are roughly 1,000 years old." 1,000 years on a populated world and no one noticed them? Sensitive to light. They live underground, near the aquifers and in the underground rivers. They're amphibious mollusks. And already up for adoption? A little more complicated than that. She was a rescue that has no family to claim her. You see, the Orhanas have some immortal but mindless members of their species. These sacred ancestors are ageless and brainless, but will occasionally break off a limb which then forms a newly born Orhanas, such as our little wonder here. Very interesting, and I imagine that hide-and-go-seek will be rather easy with this little lady. "Oh, she's much more of a peekaboo girl at this stage," Cindy states, "although she's certainly fond of Daddy's tickles and raspberries." "And what?" "It's sort of like a kiss on the arm or stomach that he then blows on to make a silly noise. She thinks it's the funniest thing imaginable. He's gotten her to stop crying more than once." "I see, and what's her name?" "That's what I've been struggling with. The little wonder is, right now, the only member of her species that's gone so far from her homelands. She's already a historical figure. She needs a good name, but at the same time, any name I give will be, and I just want to get it absolutely right, but it's a paralyzing issue. A descriptive name seems like giving up, but a name with a grand statement can easily translate into something awful. I don't know her people's language, though, so that's what I'm waiting on." "A lexicon?" "Essentially. I want her to be named in the ways of her people, so it has to be something appropriate, and if not grand, then at least not something silly in her people's tongue," Cindy explains. "I see, smart. And you give yourself more time for a proper flash of inspiration to see if there's an absolutely perfect name out there." "Exactly. Speaking of exacts, how much debt do you still have?" Herika asks in a concerned tone. "Well, the records and all legal debt holders were reduced to cinders." "Excuse me?" "It was part of how I met my Gregory. It was another humdrum day when the alarm suddenly sounded. Then out of nowhere, a heavily armed and heavily wounded, Tret-looking man struts into my little medical ward. He asks for help and explains to me that he's been kidnapped, enslaved, and is carving a way out, but would do better if he had 2 arms and 2 eyes instead of 1 each. His wounds were fresh, his charred arm stump was still smoldering, and the scar on his face still bleeding with the ruined eye seeping. Oh my goodness. He asked for my help and, well, a man. A hurt man. Nurse in debt slavery or not, I wasn't going to let him suffer. That would go against everything I felt, everything I was taught, and everything I vowed when I went into the medical field. So you fitted him with prosthetics? Harika asks. He said he had almost no time, and I believed him. So I fit him with special ones. With ones I had been working on in secret. I had been hoping for some stupid client to show up, that I could put them on, then inform them they were my property and not the casino's, so they had to pay me. That little gouging dream died there, then he offered a new one. Escape? Yes, escape and freedom. Sealed with a kiss, I then rode his back and occasionally fired a few shots as he showed me just how dangerous a properly armed and motivated soldier can be. Eventually, we started seeing people who surrendered, and he just told them to leave. When some claimed debt slavery like myself, he offered them freedom too. He fully intended to take over the very ship that had stolen him, and the more crew he had, the better. Well, he certainly doesn't lack for boldness, Harika notes as the door opens again. This time, Pukey is back and in a semi-formal outfit. Sorry about the wait. Apparently, Slithern decided to get even after the last prank and hid my button-downs. Pukey explains. Pranks? You've been playing jokes on him? Of course, it not only keeps him thinking and alert, but it's all in good fun. The last one involved a pillowcase made of special materials he couldn't see taped above his bed. The joke was to see how long until he saw it, and he had to be told it was there. So since I hid something from him, he hid something from me. Has anyone been hurt by these pranks? No. We have some pretty strict rules. If it draws blood, it's too far. If something gets broken, it's too far. And in general, if you can't talk around our chaplain or doctor to approving, it's too far, Pukey says as he walks over to where Cindy is sitting. He quickly checks on and smiles at the sleeping child, then picks up Cindy to place her on his lap as he sits on the same chair. She smiles. So what have I interrupted? She was explaining how you met. Oh, at what point in that story are we? You were gathering the other debt slaves to yourself as a crew to steal the chaining. Be fair to yourself. Without you there to vouch for me, they wouldn't have believed me. Not to mention your skill with a laser saved my life at least twice. Twice? I only remember once. It was a very exciting time, and it happened almost the exact same way, so I'm not surprised it blurred together. Oh, hey, wait, yeah? The first time the woman had brown hair and the second she was blonde. See? Pukey asks. Anyways, the other people enslaved by the casino passed things around, and we quickly got all of them. Then one of them, who was working as technician, gave me a target to kill the place. They showed me where the central processor was, and with a plasma cannon I got my hands on, I was able to destroy it and most, if not all, records of their debts. It also destroyed their communication, tore down the power grid, completely shut down their machines, set off a huge panic, and gave us all the perfect cover to run. Cindy says, It was good move. Pity she didn't want to stick around. But she wanted to see her family again after we got away free and clear, and I'm not going to begrudge anyone that, Pukey remarks. And after that is when you met Slithern? Yes, on the way out I recognized several chaining crew members and took them out. I managed to get my hands on their equipment and some other pieces I needed to make a go at the ship. Pukey confirms before opening his arms to gesture to the room around them, which, as you can see, paid off very, very well. It did. What happened to these other liberated slaves? I'm the only one that stayed. I'm in contact with my family again, but, well, there's more of it now, she says, cuddling back into Pukey, who hugs her. And Slithern? We found him in a chamber not far from this one, Pukey says. He was in bad shape. His primary captor was a snick suffering from the degenerative disorder that turns them cannibalistic. She was savoring him, Cindy says in a horrified tone. All told, Slithern was strategically injured in a way that it wouldn't kill him, but all his fingers were gone, half his face, his left eye, large chunks of his tail. Worse was the expression on his face. He was gone. He had been so broken by what happened that he could not comprehend that it was over. Pukey says, It took nearly a week before he would speak in any way that wasn't answering a question. I see. What have you done with the room? Storage. We told Slithern that he could decide whatever was to be done with it, and he wanted to make it into a closet for all he cares. So long as he never had to go in there again, we keep raw supplies in there now. Metals, water, plastics, that sort of thing, as well as some infrastructure. Pukey says, I can show it to you, but it's not very interesting. We expanded the space, and the place where Slytherin was chained up is completely taken up by the water tank's infiltration systems. About half the water on the ship goes through there now. You needed to upgrade the ship? It's a human trait. We're very energy intensive, and water is basically the carrier of that energy to us, so we need a lot. We also prefer to use it for cleaning things and ourselves as well. Not to mention a hot bath is godly after a hard day's work. I prefer sunning myself, just swaying on a comfortable hammock while the toasty rays of light soothe my every worry away, Cindy says, and Herika nods enthusiastically to that. The human has some good ideas, but the Kobe is a downright genius. All right now, unless something very worrying or weird comes up, you both are passing. There's clearly a lot of love and a lot of capability in this relationship, and with how much you turn to each other and the amount of resources at your disposal, the boy will want for nothing. That fact that the family is clearly growing also means he's going to have all the love, support, and responsibility he needs to grow well, Harisa says, and there's a nod from them both. I'm sensing the approach of, however, Cindy says. You are. However, I still am legally required to go through my entire investigation, which means examining as much of this ship as is possible, speaking to everyone here and making contact with character witnesses. This is going to take a while, and I am sorry for the inconvenience. You're doing this to make sure our child, is healthy, happy, and well cared for. It can be annoying, but it's a good thing you're doing. How long do you expect this will take? Upwards of a week, 2 at most, Herika admits. Fair enough. Is there anything we should know about things? Certain rules we have to abide by while you're present? Not in particular, but I will tell you this. I can generally tell how most things will go by the time the preliminary interview has started, and we just did that. 9 times out of 10, I can call it by now. I call this an acceptable home for the child. However, I still need to go through the motions. If I could speak with him, or Miss Powercoil next, I'd be appreciative. You could start now. I've been paying attention the whole time, Letha says over the speakers, and everyone instinctively looks up. The little Orhana squirms a bit, and there's a slightly worried sound over the speakers before she settles again. I'd prefer to speak to your main body, no matter how well integrated you are with the ship. Please and thank you.